Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled council meeting for Monday, May 12th, 2014 at 7 p.m. Our first order of business is the opening ceremony, which consists of the national anthem. And I've appointed a mayor's assistant tonight, Mr. Zach Parks, third grader from Douglas Elementary. And at the conclusion of the national anthem, he's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we will have a moment of silence for those service members that have given their lives while defending our country. Would everybody please stand?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Let's give Zach a hand for helping us out. Ms. Bettis, will you take the roll, please?
Good evening, Your Honor. Mayor Walker?
Here.
Councilmember Lynch? Here. Councilmember King?
Here.
Councilmember Squires?
Here.
Councilmember Kerwin?
Here.
Councilmember McCarr?
Here.
Councilmember Sisierski?
Here.
Okay, the next item is item 4, approval of the agenda as presented. Please note that item 3, it should be post 396, not 395.
Okay. Mayor,
Ms. Lynch?
I move for the approval of tonight's agenda.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Squires. Any discussion from the table? From the general public? Ms. Bettis?
Councilmember Lynch?
Aye.
Councilmember Squires?
Aye.
Councilmember Sisierski?
Aye.
Councilmember McCarr?
Aye.
Councilmember Kerwin?
Aye.
Councilmember King?
Aye.
Mayor Walker?
Aye. Community events, I don't think we have any tonight.
Your Honor, there was one item requested, and I don't see the speaker here, so.
Okay. We will move on. Comments from state and county officials. We have Wayne County Commissioner Richard LeBlanc. Would you like to say anything tonight, sir?
I would.
Thank you.
Greetings all. Just one thing to report tonight. As I've mentioned in the past, the Commission is examining a deficit elimination plan for the county, something that's required by the state. The county's had a number of meetings on it over the course of about the past 3 months or so, but there's been no activity, no action that's formal. The state of Michigan notified us this past Tuesday, 6 days ago, that Wayne County has until May 31st to take action on either the proposed deficit elimination plan, the plan that was proposed by the county executive, or if it chooses to not adopt that plan, it must adopt one of its own. We became notified, I'd say about an hour ago, that the executive plan is proposed to be modified tomorrow. One of the reason I mentioned it tonight is that one of the things that's been viewed as very objectionable by a number of people from within the community that have contacted me personally involves the retiree aspect of it. And while there were no proposed changes to the pension per se, it has been recommended or had been recommended that any Medicare eligible retiree be transitioned to the Affordable Care Act and off the county rolls. Quite a number of people, as I said, have contacted individual commissioners. They've addressed the commission collectively, noting objections. Not just that, but that's been primarily the largest objection, And at about 6 o'clock today, we became notified that the plan that we'll be examining tomorrow has one modification. And that modification is that that portion will be stricken and that the executive will have filled in that gap with something different, allegedly not so objectionable. So tomorrow, I expect that there will be a vote of the Wayne County Commission in committee of the whole, where all commissioners are gathered. And then on Thursday at our formal board meeting, where we again collectively meet in public for a number of items, I expect that that item is going to be on the agenda at that time as well. Again, I think that there's I'd say a probability that it receives a majority support, probably not unanimously, but it will allow the county to move forward with the formal deficit elimination plan, the plan that is required by the state, and to use layman's terms, the plan that will very likely avoid an emergency manager scenario for the county. Again, nothing is cast in stone. That's where we're at today. I thought that as recently as today, since somebody at our coffee hour in Garden City today at noon asked me about it, I thought that I would bring it to your attention because it is pretty recent information. And then I would suggest if you have questions regarding anything else that we do in our office, I have Mary McClendon from my office here. She's way better at all of this stuff. She can help you in any way. I know she's been here a number of times on my behalf. So having said that in a quasi-joking manner, Mayor, I'd be pleased to respond to any questions that y'all might have.
Anybody have anything for Mr. LaPlante?
Okay? Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I don't see Mr. Knizek here tonight. We have no petitions or communications, no public hearings. Next item is item 9, our consent agenda.
Mayor,
Ms. Lynn?
I move for the approval of the consent agenda items 9A1 through 5.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Sosierski. Any discussion from the table? From the general public? Ms. Bettis?
Councilmember Lynch?
Aye.
Councilmember Sosierski?
Aye.
Councilmember McCarr?
Aye.
Councilmember Kerwin?
Aye.
Councilmember Squires?
Aye.
Councilmember King?
Aye.
Mayor Walker?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to our study session. Item B on the agenda. First up is Douglas Elementary 3rd grade recycling presentation. And while you're coming up, we'd like to welcome the 3rd graders from Douglas to the City Council meeting. He's got it up right behind you. Okay. Want to state your name, honey, and get...
Hi, I'm Anastasia, and we are here today to get a curbside recycling program to Garden City. These slides will tell you why we need curbside recycling. We did presentations in front of our parents, and now we've moved on to City Council. We hope you consider our presentation.
Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Recycling is one of the best ways to protect our natural resources. For example, if animals make their homes by landfills not knowing that they could overflow with trash or plants grow by landfills, it could harm them or kill them.
Next slide, please.
Hold the microphone down. We won't have to jump there. You go.
Black recycling is a contributor to both global warming and the killing of animals worldwide. Recycling reduces waste products in landfills. Recycling helps save trees and wildlife in this city. Garden City, If we start recycling in Garden City, we can decrease the amount of pollution that we put in landfills every year. Recycling has a lot of benefits. If you recycle, it helps save the earth. When you recycle, it helps save the earth. It helps the environment by preventing landfills and polluted water. Plants can't have polluted water, and animals can't have too much landfills by their environment.
Next slide, please.
This slide shows cities with similar populations. We are green. Plymouth Township is purple. Wyandotte is yellow, and Northfield Township is red.
Next slide, please.
Trash sent to landfills. This graph shows how much trash is sent to landfills per year. As you can see, we send 15,112.2 tons of trash to landfills per year. That is significantly more than the other cities.
Next slide, please.
As you can see on this slide, we're in the 300s, while all the other cities are in the thousands. We recycle significantly less tons than all these other cities.
Next slide, please.
We asked students' parents who attended Garden City Public School 3 brief questions on surveymonkey.com.
Next slide, please.
Do you currently recycle at Muller Field? 35% said yes, they do recycle at Muller Field. 65% said no, they do not recycle at Muller Field.
Next slide, please.
Question 2. Would you like to start a curbside recycling program in Garden City? 77% strongly agree, 15% agree, 2% disagree, and 6% strongly disagree.
Next slide, please.
Subscription program. A subscription program is a curbside recycling program where you would pay a fee to Waste Management. Wyandotte and Sterling Heights already participate in this type of program. Wyandottes program costs $8.01 per month for the residents, and Sterling Heights program costs $5.10 per month for the residents. This pickup is for every other week.
Switch that. Next slide, please.
Question 3. I would participate in a subscription recycling program. A subscription program is where you would sign up and pay the fee to Waste Management. The cost would be about $10 a month. Results: 63% surveyed they would absolutely would or probably would participate in this type of program.
Next slide, please.
Recycling can save the environment and give the future generations a better place to live, or a clean place to live. As you can see by our graphs, Garden City sends the most trash to landfills. Our survey results show most people would like a curbside recycling program started. And finally, one option could be to start a subscription program in Garden City. I hope you all strongly consider this slideshow that we have put together today. Any questions?
Next slide, please.
Thank you, third graders. We really enjoyed having you here, and we're definitely going to seriously look into recycling here in Garden City. Any council members got any comments for the third graders?
I would just like to say I love the idea, and I am definitely in favor of curbside recycling, and you've done a lot of work that I was going to do, so thank you for doing all the research. Fabulous job. Keep watching our meetings so that you guys can find out what we're doing, because it is something we're going to discuss, so thank you.
Anybody else from the table? Ms. Squires?
I want to thank the kids for coming tonight and doing the presentation. It's, as they say, out of the mouth of babes. I am for recycling and have been for a long time. So we will be working hard on it.
Mrs. Lynch?
I just wanted to say, third graders, that was a lot of research you put into that presentation. I was really impressed, as I know my fellow colleagues up here were, because you had tables and percentages, and you even did an online survey. That's fantastic. Great job. And as I'm going to also state, Council is looking into recycling program. We're just not sure what it's going to look like yet, but we are looking into this. So thank you for bringing it to us.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation, and I'm one of the 65% that does recycle. So I really appreciate what you brought forward.
Just to know that you guys make a difference. Doing the work and doing the presentation, your research makes a difference, because it certainly, I learned a little bit tonight, and as we look into recycling, I will remember you and your teachers, and great job.
And I would say that I think I've never seen such a good-looking group of third graders, but I think half of them will end up being professional speakers, and I thank you very kindly for doing your homework.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure they're after my job, so I'm just staying quiet.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on in our agenda. Next, we have Plant Moran for a water rate study presentation.
I think they're going to find it hard to follow the third graders with this presentation.
Mr. Mayor, while they're setting up, I do want to mention that we have Mr. Roney and I have a meeting scheduled with Republic Thursday afternoon at 3:30 on the topic of recycling.
Wonderful.
And the curbside recycling program.
Great. Good.
Thank you.
So they're going to discuss the cost for recycling.
I'm sorry.
The meeting you're having with Republic is about the recycling.
Mr. Helisek, do you think you can top that presentation?
There's no way I can top that presentation.
I was going to tell you that.
For third graders,
They were really good.
they were unfazed
Yes.
by speaking in front of them. There's some of my young staff who come in front of a council meeting for the first time.
Yeah.
The nerves just start. Now they've been thinking about it all day.
Exactly.
I believe so.
Get everybody's attention so we can hear Mr. Helisek on the water rate presentation. Go ahead, sir.
Mayor and council, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present the results of the compilation for financial forecast for the Water and Sewer Fund for the years ended June 30, 2015 through June 30, 2019. My colleague Michelle Lewis just passed out the report itself to you today, just a couple minutes ago, with those results, and I'd like to spend a couple minutes really going through what it really entailed and then discuss what the results ended up being. This would be a little bit different if we were to walk through this than it would be if we're doing an audit presentation. So I'll ask you to first turn to page 5. And it really discusses really what the forecast is all about, how the numbers are derived, and how these numbers end up getting incorporated to the rates that are presented in this document this evening. As you can see, the purpose of the forecast, is really dictated in 3 paragraphs, but really, at the end of the first paragraph says, these assumptions are really based on management's best judgment at the time this forecast was prepared. And the actual revenues and expenditures likely to vary somewhat from the forecasted amounts. Now keep in mind, this forecast is all based on assumptions with the best information that is available at this time. Will the city hit the numbers that are in this document? 100% accuracy? Absolutely not. It's just like hitting your budget on an annual basis. It's a good roadmap. It's where we anticipate it will end up, but it can fluctuate little by little every year. The thing with a 5-year forecast is any year that it fluctuates, you make an adjustment to the next year and to ensure you get to your target number by the end of the 5th year. And that's really what we're doing here in this financial forecast. The bottom of page 5, the significant accounting policies really are important, but really even more important is the list of assumptions. So I'm not going to go through all of them in detail. The forecast included a number of items, some historical, some the budget you're working on, but a lot of forecasting. So it included an estimate by management of where the 14 year was going to end up for the water and sewer fund. It used actual beginning working capital numbers as of the June 30, 2013 audit. It's using your budget, your budget, your anticipated budget for your 14-15 year end, and then the list of assumptions that we're going to go over here right now. Working capital is the key target number when you're dealing with water and sewer rates, in particular water and sewer rate fund. Working capital is much like fund balance in your general funds and your special revenue funds. Working capital is really the difference between your current assets and current liabilities, and it's really the dollars that you need to maintain to operate the system on an annual basis. To establish the working capital, there's 3 components that are included in the document. One is the number of days of operating expense that you should include in your working capital reserves. The city has chosen 90 days, which is pretty consistent with what we'd see in most of our water rate studies. There also should be a reserve set aside as a component of net book value of capital assets. So the Water and Sewer Fund maintains water and sewer lines' significant amount of infrastructure that has grown over time. As you know, annually, there can be things that go wrong, water main breaks, sewer breaks, and some of those are budgeted for, but some of them can get pretty big. And you need to have monies on reserve in case those come in to deal with those during your budget year. AWWA would say that the number should be about 2% of the net book value of the capital assets in any given year, so we're using that one as well. And then finally, the upcoming year's debt service. So the reason that you need the upcoming year's debt service, including the working capital component, is the debt payments might come in actually faster than the revenue is coming in during the year, so you've got the money set aside so you can cover those costs when the payments come due. So those would be the 3 main components. So I talked a bit about working capital and it being current assets less current liabilities, but we do make some adjustments to that number. And the reason being is if you were to take a look at the current assets for the Water and Sewer Fund, one of the largest components of that number is the accounts receivable. Accounts receivable is really 3 components as it relates to the water and sewer. There is the actual amounts that have been billed and are waiting to be collected. There are the amounts that have been unbilled. So as part of the audit, we take an estimate, or the city takes an estimate, we do some testing on it to ensure that the amount that's been used but not billed yet is included as a receivable. And then finally, there's a 3rd component, and that's the amounts that have been billed, not paid, but put on the tax roll. And as it turned out at June 30, those 3 components actually are about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 of a $5.2 million balance. So if we think about that balance, $5.2 million of a receivable when total revenues of the system on an annual basis is about $10 million, is a pretty large percentage. Ideally, you'd hope it'd be in the neighborhood of 25 to 33%. So based on the programs and the payment cycles that are going on within the city, when you've got a receivable that large as a percentage of your annual revenue, it requires you to have more monies set aside to make payments. Because of course, if some of the payments are being delayed, you still got to pay the county and the city for usage of the water and sewer charges as they come due. So we have a slight adjustment to that number, and that's incorporated in this document as well. And then finally on pages 5 and 6, and again, I'm not going to go through them in detail, but really the rest of the study does require an assumption to every line item. Every line item in your budget for 5 years out. Some of them will be tied to inflation. Some of them will be tied to specific estimates as to where the city anticipates the charges for water and sewer to elevate to. Again, the charges from the city and from the county that the city has to pay on an annual basis. Healthcare, general liability, those type of things, as well as wages. So those are all going to be incorporated within this document. So Michelle had met with Therese, some time ago, set a basic model together. More recently, Michelle and I met with the city manager, the clerk, and the deputy treasurer to go over those assumptions, make sure everyone was on the same page, and ultimately come up with the results of what rates would need to be charged to meet this target working capital. So as a result, on page 2, you will see that as a result of the financial forecast for the water and sewer fund, for the year ended June 30, 2015, there is no suggested adjustment to the commodity charge for neither water and sewer. And I'll talk to that even more when I get into the 5-year projection, but that no increase is actually anticipated to go on for a number of years. But I'll focus right now from 14 to 15. The city had ready-to-serve charges for both the water fund, the water and the sewer components of the system, and we've listed those on page 2, and they were really based on meter size. The larger the meter, the larger the ready-to-serve charge. As a result of the study, it is suggested as a result that ready-to-serve charge be reduced, and that's an annual number, to $48.09 for the year ended 2015, June 30, 2015, for both water and sewer. You can see, especially when it relates to the sewer side, that is a significant decrease to the charges for the year ended June 30, 2014. As it relates to water, there's a slight increase on one of the meter sizes, but basically everything else is a decrease. So based on that, we were trying to determine what's the impact to some of the users of the system based on this rate model. So if you turn to page 3, there's 3 scenarios that were included, and really we could run any number of them. But we have 3 example customers, one using 30 CCS per year, a second one 79, and a third one 200. The first 2 are 1-inch meters, the last one is a 1.5-inch meter. And really what we tried to demonstrate here is what the impact of these changes would be. So before I get into that even more, what the model dictated out was really that there would be no increase in the user charge for the next 3 years, 15, 16, 17, and there would be 4% increases in years 18 and 19. those increases would be well below the assumptions as far as the increase in costs passed on for both the city and the county for purchase of water and treatment of sewer. There are increases, I would say they're pretty close to inflationary increases on the ready-to-serve charge. They're based on the actual anticipated costs on an annual basis over that 5-year period. But when you take a look at the 3 scenarios, you can see under the first scenario, we're estimating a low-end user with 30 CCS per year. In 2014, the annual bill would have been about $405. 2015, with using the numbers in the forecast, that number would actually drop to $340, which is a 16% decrease year over year. Like I indicated, 16 and 17 increase each year because there's a small increase in the ready-to-serve charge. We're seeing 1.5% increase, another 1.5% increase. But those numbers are still 13% lower than the same usage in 2014. And even when we go out into years 2018 and 2019, where we're taking a look at the 4% increases, for that first example, when we go all the way out to 2019, you'll see, based on the same consumption levels, 5 years out, the annual cost for water and sewer services from the city for that type of a user will still be lower than it was in 2014. And that's really what the 2 percentage values are. We're trying to show annual increases, but then also going back to that baseline of 2014. In example 2, it really kind of plays out the same way. We're using the same meter charges, higher end user, with the 79 CCS versus the 30. And you can see it is not until the year 2019 where that user is actually paying a little bit more than they were paying in 2014. And even at that point, it's only a 1.2% increase in that given year. So you're seeing an 8% decrease in year 1. You're seeing less than 1% increases in each of the next 3 years. And again, not until you hit that last year is it really exceeding to what it was in 2014. And then finally, a higher end user. And I know there's much higher end users within the city, but now the 200 CCFs and the 1.5 inch meters in 2014, 1,868. They'd see a 7% decrease in their total bill if they're using the same amount of water, down to 1,722,000 and 7.8% decrease. And they wouldn't see an increase again until 2019 when we're comparing baseline to 2014. So what does that do? Those are examples. On page 4, On page 4, there's a lot more detail behind this. We try to really give an overview. But as I indicated earlier, really the focus is trying to get it to a target working twofold. Get the city to a target working capital and ultimately bring in enough revenues to cover the costs. This model, as it plays out, would do both. It's kind of hard to see, but there is a target working capital. Maybe the easiest place to look at it is in the forecast 2019 column. There's a big black line about a third of the way through the page, and then 2 numbers up on that, there's a line that says target working capital and reserves. The number is $3,218,448. So based on the days of operating expenses I discussed earlier, the percentage of capital assets, the 2% number, and the debt service anticipated, that is where really the working capital target should be. And if you go just below, about 2/3 the way down that page, you'll see that second black line, bold black line, and you'll see what the forecasted number is anticipated to be. And that's at $3.4 million. So that's about $200,000 difference. And when you're dealing with a forecast, it's a pretty good number. So how do we get from A to B? it was estimated as of, well, it wasn't estimated, the baseline number for beginning working capital as of July 1st, 2013 was 4.7 million. We worked through the projections, the forecast, the anticipated activity for the city, and really the focus was bringing that $4.7 million number down to 3.4 by the year 2019. Again, this will be, would be something, if adopted by the city, that would be updated and adjusted annually to make sure that we're still on target. If there's, changes, we'll update it and incorporate it at that time. I believe the city manager indicated he was looking for us to be involved with it on an annual basis, but again, that's up to the city. But by the end of 2019, we will always be targeting that working capital number. Now, that working capital number might change a little bit. I mean, it's a function of operational expenditures, but it'll be relatively close to that number. So you can see, and I mentioned earlier about the accounts receivables and it being a large number. If we included that accounts receivable number in our working capital number, and we're only targeting 3.4 million, which is the right number, we could deplete all our cash and then we'd have just receivables to cover the operation. So again, a key component as well as the ability to turn those receivables into cash, because if you're able to do that, that actually allows you perhaps to even lower the rate a little bit more because you don't need as much on reserve to cover those costs on an ongoing basis. So I know it's kind of been, I know a fast-moving process for the city. It's a lot of information to absorb in a relatively short period of time. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the study or the results of the study.
Mr. Kerwin?
Mr. Helsick, I have a few questions for you, sir. You mentioned accounts receivable probably a dozen times.
Yes.
And I need to know, in your estimation, if we have over $1 million and accounts receivable due to non-payment, actually, we don't do shut-offs like we used to. Would that be a better idea for us if we were to reinstitute that? I mean, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Quite a few people getting a free lunch here,
It's hard to say if it's a better idea. Shut-off or non-shut-off programs, you really go one way or the other. You have a shut-off program, or you end up allowing ratepayers to put the money on the tax roll. That ends up being a policy decision. What I can say is, the longer it takes to pay, the more cash you need available to cover payments. So ultimately, it would normally require, without a shut-off program, you to have more cash on reserves to cover current costs.
Thank you. Also, do you think $5.27 million is a reasonable amount for the excess of current liabilities?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
The dollar figure.
5.277
million.
The accounts receivable number?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay.
No.
All right.
It's not receivable. But
okay. I
just
want to make sure
What page, Jim?
I don't know, but I'm going to tell you in a second.
I don't even see that number.
Well, 5.277 is the accounts receivable number.
That's receivable?
Yes. As of June 30, 2013.
Purpose of this model, beginning working capital of July 30, 13 excludes. Okay.
Right.
All right. That answers my question. Thank you. And also, do you believe there's a need to increase the water ready to use?
The ready to serve charge.
Ready to serve charge.
Well, no, actually, I think there's a decrease in the
No,
ready
but after, in a few years, you're going to see.
Well, yeah, so essentially what the projection lays out is we're resetting the number to a $48 number from those various rates, and I probably should have made that more clear. If you turn to page 3, and in the ready to serve charge is the same based on each meter size, but you can see, again, these are annual increases. This is not a per bill increase. So, and the water and sewer is going to end up being the same number, but if you go to, like under customer 1 where it says sewer ready to serve, you'll see that there are increases, but the increase from 2015 to 2016 is about $2. So that's $2 for the whole year. And the increase to the next year is $2.50. So there are increases, but they're pretty nominal when you take a look at the grand scheme of things and the cost of operating
So
the
that
system.
doesn't mean a whole lot, then, okay. All right, that's it, thank you, Mayor.
Would you explain the ready-to-serve?
Sure. So the ready-to-serve charge is really trying to capture costs that the city is going to incur regardless of the amount of water or sewer that's being used by a ratepayer. It's really focused more, to be honest, around a lot of the billing, a lot of the administration, those type of things. So regardless of how much, the best example is regardless of how much water any ratepayer needs or uses, we still have to send a person out there to go read it. Doesn't matter if it's 1 gallon or 1 million gallons. It costs the same to have that person read a meter. So it's really capturing kind of all of those costs, putting them in a giant cost pool, and dividing it by the number of users of the system.
Okay.
So you're saying for 1 year, a low-end user, like you said, it's being charged $45. For 1 year, a low-end user for the ready-to-serve charge is $45.18. And that covers the administration.
That's the current, under the 2000, what is projected for the next year is actually to move it up to 4809.
Right.
But, which is an increase year over year, and we understand that, but if you take a look at the sewer side, for that same user who had paid $116.42 for the year, that number is getting reduced down again to 4809. So net, it is a decrease. And again, we ran 3 scenarios. We can run just about any scenario based on this. But then again, on page 4, at the bottom, it does show what the percentages are going out, 0, 0, 0, 4, 4, trying to hit that target number. There's circumstances that could decrease that, and circumstances that are increasing it. Well, what the positive thing is one of the assumptions that these increases being anticipated to be charged and incorporated in the study is those charges could increase 6 to 9% annually, and the city's able to absorb most of the costs without pushing it onto the ratepayer at this time.
Any other questions for Mr. Helen? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3, American Legion Riders Post 396 street sales.
C.
C. Purchase service credit.
C.
And Florence Avenue paving water main construction.
C.
Sale of city property vehicles.
C.
And DDA supplemental appropriation.
C.
Okay. We'll move on to our C agenda. First up is item C3, the American Legion Riders. Mrs. Lynch.
I move to grant permission to the American Legion Riders to hold their annual street sales on June 13, 14, and 15, 2014. The intersections to include Inkster and Ford, Middle Belt and Ford. A hold harmless and certificate of insurance will be provided.
Support.
Support from Mrs. Squires. Any discussion from the table? From the general public? Ms. Bettis?
Councilmember Lynch.
Aye.
Councilmember Squires.
Aye.
Councilmember Sisirski.
Aye.
Councilmember McCarch.
Aye.
Councilmember Kerwin.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Mayor Walker.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Item C4.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Sosierski.
I move to approve the purchase of Municipal Employees Retirement System MERS service credit of 7 months by Eric Thompson and to authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents related to this application.
Support from Councilmember Kerwin. Discussion from the table. From the general public. Ms. Bettis?
Councilmember Sosierski.
Aye.
Councilmember Kerwin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCarch.
Aye.
Councilmember Squires.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Lynch.
Aye.
Mayor Walker.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Item C5, Florence Avenue paving and water main construction.
Mayor,
Mrs. McCarch?
I move to authorize Hennessy Engineers Incorporated to perform construction phase services as described in the correspondence from Hennessy Engineers Incorporated dated April 25th, 2014, in an amount not to exceed $103,930.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Lynch. Discussion from the table.
I have a question, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
I don't know, Kevin or Brian, if you want to answer this, but on your proposal, it talks about the removal of the existing gravel driveway approaches, and that if the homeowner chooses to replace it with concrete at the time of the construction at their own cost, what are we going to do if they choose not to put in the concrete?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This project will be done just like the other projects we've done the past 2 years, so any hard surfaced approaches, concrete or asphalt, will be replaced with concrete. And then any gravel driveway approaches would be replaced with gravel. However, per city ordinance, the homeowner has 1 year to have that placed as concrete. So most do contact us during the construction process to have the contractor do that, and we provide that at the same cost as it is to the city. If they choose not to do that, again, they have 1 year to do that. With the Harrison project, we did follow up with, there were 5 property owners that did not do it at that time. 1 year later, we did follow up with them as we were working on Bach right around the corner, and all 5 of them did at that time go ahead and have that done while the contractor was over on Bach. So again, if they don't do that within a year's time frame, I'm not sure what the penalty is for that with the city, but there is a 1 year time frame.
And will you guys allow residents to have additional work done if they need more of their driveway or sidewalk done? Is that something the contractor will offer them?
That would be up to the contractor. At times, the contractor does offer that. I want to say last year they did not, but we leave that up to the contractor.
All I have, thank you.
Mrs. King?
Question for you. I see on your list here, it doesn't involve the sidewalks. Now, on Bach you did. Is there a reason why we're not doing sidewalks? I didn't see it.
There are sidewalks proposed to be, most of the sidewalks on Florence Avenue will be reconstructed. Particularly on the north side as a new water main will be placed underneath or near the sidewalk. It should be in the,
I don't see it in
I
the
don't know if the estimate was
I read it in here.
It's also, the estimate was attached as well at the bottom. It lists this 4 and 6 inch concrete sidewalk.
Here, remove sidewalk, okay. That's removed.
There are several areas on the south side of the road as well that need to be removed due to ponding issues, and that's probably the biggest concern with this project is the numerous areas of, there's really no drainage that exists on that road, so it'll be a huge improvement.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I have.
When do you anticipate starting this project?
We're hoping to get
We're
this.
at mid-May right now.
We're hoping to get this started towards the end of June and have it completed in October.
Okay.
We think this project will probably, of course, last year we had 2 streets we were doing, this year just 1. I expect this street to go a little bit faster as, if you remember from Bach and Lathers, between the 2 streets, we had about 80 trees that we had to remove. That took a 2 to 3 week process. This project, we only had 1 tree. Water service transfers between both projects, we had 150 water transfers to do last year. This year we only have 1. So I expect this project to go a lot faster.
Well, I got you up here because the people on Bach and Lathers are still waiting for sod. And I know the sod farms are backed up because of the terrible winter we had. While you're up here, what's the latest update on when they'll get sod?
The sod farm was supposed to start cutting sod today. I highly doubt that happened with the weather today. So they are to be out there this week to start sodding on Bach Avenue. They were out there last week just dressing up some of the topsoil. They'll be placing the sod hopefully here later this week, and then follow that up over to Lathers. There may be some gaps left in Lathers for a couple weeks, as there are some concrete repairs that need to be done, and those have been marked out there last week. So concrete subcontractors expected to be in sometime here before the Memorial Day holiday, and then once that's completed, the restoration crew will come back in and finish any gaps in the sod. So we're hoping by the end of the month we should be done on those two streets.
Okay.
And a notice was sent out to the residents today, updating them on status.
Okay.
Mayor, I just wanted to make a quick comment. In the write-up that Hennessy provided us, it says replacement of storm sewer within the road right-of-way was identified as being in poor condition based upon the recent sewer televising completed by the Department of Public Service staff. That paid off in many ways, not only identifying, but it showed us that this was in very poor condition and needed to be replaced. So some people ask why this particular street. There's part of the answer right there.
Yes.
So thank you.
We found that section of Dawson completely collapsed. We had to redo that whole block or two, so the cameras really did help.
Yes, it did.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Questions? And we need a vote.
Yep. Any comments from the general public? Yes, sir.
Since there's no houses on that street, are they going to be able to pave that whole street at one time, which may be cheaper, or are they going to do it in sections, 2 sections? And one other question, too, is when you go over there and look, it looks like if they put new sidewalks in there with a street, how much wider, if it gets any wider, there's going to be an ordinance problem with people parking on the driveways that have garages on that side. Just thought I'd bring it to your attention.
As far as the sidewalks, there will be, I believe it's west of Deering, there'll be about 8 feet green belt on both sides, and then east of Deering about 5.5 feet. The road is widening from about 22 feet wide to 27 foot wide, and there will be parking allowed on both sides of the street as well. As far as the construction of the project, it is proposed that we do it full width at blocks at a time. That will speed up the process as well. They're short blocks. Each block is only serving 4 driveways, and those houses can park in front of their homes, so they have easy access at all times. And we would propose probably doing 2 or 3 blocks at a time, and they would have the side streets, through side streets would remain open as much as possible to allow fire and police access.
Thank you. Anybody else from the general public? Yes, sir.
Well, that one I'm going to say what I said anyway. Since every house over there has got a side street, I don't know why you're allowing parking on that street anyway. We got enough problems getting up down the street in the wintertime now, and you're going to allow it on both sides. And they all got frontage. All their houses face a side street. None of them face that street. So I don't know why in the world you're going to do this dumbass thing again and allow parking, and the fire trucks can't get up and down the street now. I know they won't like it, but that's too bad.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Pettis?
Councilmember McCarge.
Aye.
Councilmember Lynch.
Aye.
Councilmember Sisirski.
Aye.
Councilmember Kerwin.
Aye.
Councilmember Squires.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Mayor Walker.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Item C6, sale of city property vehicles.
Mayor,
Mrs. King?
move to award the bids for the sale of city police vehicles as follows, and to authorize the clerk treasurer to execute any necessary documents.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Squires. Discussion at the table. Chief, you have anything you want to say on this?
No, Your Honor. The paperwork's pretty self-explanatory. Traditionally, we're allowed to dispose of property without council action when the value is under $1,000. However, in this case, several different bidders bid for more than one vehicle. Since that brought the total amount over $1,000 from that particular bidder, we felt like for purposes of transparency, it was best to bring them all before council at this time. we're very pleased with this auction.
Anybody else from the table? From the general public? Mrs. Bettis?
Councilmember King?
Aye.
Councilmember Squires?
Aye.
Councilmember Sisirski? Aye. Councilmember McCarge?
Aye.
Councilmember Kerwin?
Aye.
Councilmember Lynch?
Aye.
Mayor Walker?
Aye. Item C7, DDA supplemental appropriation.
Mayor,
Mrs. Lynch?
I move to approve the DDA request supplemental appropriation of funds from 729.729-190-000, use of fund balance, to 729.729-933.000, streetscape maintenance, to cover snow removal overages and streetscape construction project extensions.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Sisirski. Yeah, I think everybody's snow and salt budget went over this year with the winter that we had, so that's where this comes into play. Any other comments from the table, from the general public? Mrs. Bettis?
Councilmember Lynch?
Aye.
Councilmember Sisirski? Aye. Councilmember McCarge?
Aye.
Councilmember Kerwin?
Aye.
Councilmember Squires?
Aye.
Councilmember King?
Aye.
Mayor Walker?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. We'll now move on to our public comments. These are for items that were not on the agenda. There's a 5-minute time limit. If you wish to speak, please come up and state your name. I'd like to remind you it is not the time to engage in conversation with council members. It's your opportunity to make a comment or a statement. Anybody wishing to speak? Mr. Butler?
Al Butler. I won't talk about the water tonight, we'll get that to another time. We'll talk about the 590% increase on the 52% voting. I am a little curious about the budget when you look it over. How much extra money is being spent for supposedly extra helpers that we need in the Parks and Rec. I think it's 100,000. We budget for also City Hall. I mean, they're closed on Friday and they're still busy. They need another person, which is going to probably cost another, anywhere between 80 and 100, who knows. Then we have the situation where it's thrown out there that the chief's been so busy they can't get a hold of him, that he needs an assistant. And I'm kind of taken also too with that budget when I look at it. When he took that position for $35,000, then when you look at it, now it's up to $66,000. And if I remember correct, there was supposed to not be no retirement in that. But take a look at the figures; they don't lie. But anyway, if you're looking at roughly, he's probably spending, if it's approved, which probably it will be, another $300,000 or so. I hear nothing mentioned about hiring some DPW workers. We hear how they're overworked, and yet they're stretched to the limit. I don't hear about hiring extra policemen. I don't hear nothing hiring about extra firemen. So I think if you're going to spend the money, raise our taxes, let's put it where it counts. Let's get us some protection out here. Not that we don't have good protection. It's good to see that you're getting more police cars, something way overdue. But let's get them some more bodies to work with them. Some more policemen, more firemen. You don't need more workers in City Hall. You don't need more workers for the chief here. I mean, if he can't do his job like he promised, let him go back as a full-time chief. Because there's a lot of unsolved crime that has not been solved since he's took over. Now, I'm not saying that was the problem, but I mean, the fact speaks for himself. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Jones?
Mike Jones, Garden City. Just a last reminder, there's only 5 days left to a fantastic Kids Day in the park. Let everybody you know be aware of it. It's going to be great. Whether or not the weather cooperates is irrelevant. We're going to have bouncers, we're going to have clowns, we're going to have face painting, we're going to have scavenger hunt, we're going to have entertainment, food will be available for purchase. All kids can get in for, I think it's $3, Pat?
Yes, $3 per child.
For a child, unless there's a family with more than one, then the whole slew of them can get in for $5 total. It's going to be great.
Is that a 10 a.m. start?
It is.
11 o'clock.
Oh,
11 o'clock?
11 o'clock.
I'm sorry, I have to be at 10. 11 to 4, I think.
11 to 4.
11 to 4. Kids Day in the Park. Anybody else? Mr. Wallace?
Buddy Wallace. I'm glad the Plant Moran stayed here. Last time they were here, December the 21st, Mr. Kerwin asked them about a $3.8 million deficit in the water department. And the public has never found out anything about it. It's our dollars. We'd like to know something about it. Transparency is very important. The county, everybody, all these cities, you really start wondering, who does all the audits on these cities that are going bankrupt or getting city managers, emergency managers? Something's wrong somewhere. Anyway, I wrote a letter to Plant Moran in Chicago. I haven't heard from them yet. But I don't think, and the lady here said that Mrs. Bettis knew where that $3.8 million went to. Can you please let us know? And I want to commend Chief Manager Murray. If I had a company and it was still working, you guys would have a hard time keeping him here. That guy has the best hiring skills of anybody that I have seen. He really does. Look at the police department and look at Mr. Rooney that he hired. Excellent hires. He's doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Okay, city manager's report.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I think Mr. Buckner left. The city manager's salary didn't go up to $66,000. It's still the same $35,000. Yes, there's $2,600 in Social Security that has to be paid by the city. Sorry. Anything else that's tacked onto there, it was already there in the budget. That includes things like office supplies, retiree Blue Cross Blue Shield. I believe that's the $66,000 number. So he's in error there. The Parks and Rec increase, I didn't look it up, but I'm pretty sure $100,000 is in error. I don't believe council's been asked to consider anything like that. The new employee under consideration at City Hall, keeping in mind that this is a proposal, council hasn't said the final word yet, but regarding that new employee, City Hall may be closed on Fridays, but everybody comes to work unless they're on a vacation day or something like that. We don't stop working on Fridays. On Fridays, we catch up with the things we couldn't do Monday through Thursday. One of the things that you've been talking about as a council was a presentation by McKenna regarding the building department and perhaps changing inspection cycles and the added workload. Well, if that comes to fruition, this employee that we're talking about would be able to assist in that capacity. I'm not quite sure that's enough. Regarding Coach Wallace's question, which was actually originally Mr. Kerwin's question, as council is aware, you received a very detailed explanation of that. Council, this was a document prepared for council. I work for council. Council can instruct me to do something with that document, but it is not within my authority to just hand it out. It was a product for city council. The police department started a new officer today, Mr. Nathan Cover. We were able to steal him from Detroit. He's a a young officer, and I'm very excited about his coming on board. That leaves us with one vacancy that we're still working on. And I would like to ask council, perhaps after the meeting or during the meeting, to take note of the blue tape on the floor.
Yes.
This is the outline, version 3.0 or 4.0 of the new council table. And I would be interested in your feedback on that. That's all I have tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kerwin.
Yes, Mayor, I'm going to give Mr. Murray my feedback already because I think it has been close to 20 years. You were just a baby back then. They've been talking about putting a new table in here. So, that being said, is this a new speaker system or?
Yes, sir.
Also?
It will be hand in hand. In fact, the speaker system's failing quicker than the table is. So I have almost daily meetings with Mr. York, who needs to get this done. And fortunately, the DPS and Director Roney, they're going to be able to do this in-house as opposed to bidding it out and getting millwork and the delays caused with working with a contractor. So, but did you know there are heaters under these tables?
Never felt it.
I feel the
I
heat
never
tonight.
feel the
Oh, yeah.
I believe it.
I was shocked to find that out.
But other than that, I wish the city manager, chief of police didn't make so much money. So I think now we're going to give you, what are you, 66,000? Got to give them with the emotion. Other than that, I don't have anything tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember McCarge?
Well, I am sorry Mr. Buckner doesn't stay after he makes his comments. And I think everybody is it encourages people and citizens to come up and speak. But remember, not everyone has factual information. And please research. You know, don't always believe what you hear. I'd like to thank Mike for mentioning Kids Day in the park, and he did mention one other thing that we're going to be doing. The Kiwanis president will be getting a pie in the face for her enthusiastic administration of Kiwanis this year, and they're going to actually sell raffle tickets so you can win the opportunity to throw that pie. So we're happy about that. The last televised council meeting, the chief mentioned Gary Simon at the end, and I think we were all kind of thinking we'd all be mentioning this, the passing of Gary Simon. And I think I'd like just to say Gary was in Kiwanis, but he also restarted the FISH program, which is the volunteer program to drive people to doctor's appointments. He was also on the library, Friends of the Library, very active supporter of the library. He actually lived in Westland, but his heart was in Garden City. He went to Garden City School as he graduated, and I've come to find out he knew a lot of my in-laws. So it's a small community, and we certainly do miss Gary Simon.
Councilmember King, nothing?
No.
Ms. Bettis?
I just would like to, did I get a chance to announce that we had Community Shred Day? Did we do that publicly? No. Let's say it again. We had 122 participants. And so for our school recycling children, I just want to say that you do get to make a difference in your government. This is how you make a difference in your government. And so I certainly encourage you to keep at it and continue that as you get older. And we like listening to what you have to say. And thank you for providing that guidance for them. Also, I would encourage everyone to when people come up to present, no matter who they are or where they come from, including myself, consider the source. That's what my mom says. I'm going to go with that. That's all I have.
Councilmember
I
Sisarski.
have nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Councilmember Squires.
Just a couple of things. First of all, I want to again thank the Douglas third graders. The presentation was fantastic. And maybe more people will listen when the kids speak, because they are our future and we have to look out for them. Also, on May 31st, the DDA is having a Lucky Squirrel Festival down at the farmers market area. There's going to be arts and crafts, a garage sale, and swap meet. It's $10 a table. We are still looking for garage sailors and arts and crafters and swap meeters. You bring your own table and tent, and it should be fun as long as the weather holds out and we don't have a day like today. So you can contact the DDA office or myself and let us know. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Lynch.
Yes, I just wanted to say there were several of us who went to see the production of Grease at Garden City High School. What a great production. Took me back many, many years for Hello Dolly when I was part of that with Garden City Schools. But Miss Lynch, the person that played Miss Lynch, Olivia, you did me proud. As a teacher, I'm also a teacher. Great job. And everyone was great, but the boys, they sure stole the show. So I just wanted to congratulate them on a wonderful production. Also, one last plug for Kids Day in the Park this Saturday. Be there at 11 o'clock, play all day, good presentations, things to do. It's a great outing for your family. And it's only $3 per child and $5 if you have a family. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to make comments to Mr. Buckner. Like I said, people come up to these podiums, everything that comes out of their mouth is not actually factual. So we have budget workshops, and that's when each department reports out, requests the budget they need for the next fiscal year to run their department. It's like a Christmas list. You can ask for the moon, it doesn't mean you're going to get it. They present, and they have some requests in there to council. We have not approved any budget for the city yet. We've just listened to each department on the request, on things they would like, and the budget they need for the next year. So for him to come up there and throw these numbers that are way out of whack and then take off, it's just like consider the source. But City Council has not approved the budget yet. And to his comment, we've hired police officers. We hired 4 firefighters. So he doesn't even have that correct. We got grant monies to hire 4 firefighters, and we did. So we had a terrible, and I want to go to this because I talked to Chief Harmon. We had a terrible car accident the other night with a golf cart, and we had 5 firefighters on. So we had the second rescue running. One was out on another run. Had we not hired those extra 4 firefighters, we'd have had another city coming to respond to that. But because we had 5 firefighters, the second unit was able to respond to that. So the 5 firefighters does pay off. So again, we've hired firefighters, we've hired police officers. Last Saturday was Shred Day, but it was also opening day. 60 years GCYA for the Little League in Garden City. It was an awesome event. It's great to see our kids out there in their uniforms, all excited, T-ball, Mustang, Bronco. We have a great city, and all the volunteers that make that program work for over 60 years. And then again, like Mrs. Lynch said, I went and seen Grease, the high school play that the high schoolers put on. It was just awesome. And don't forget what Mr. Jones said, Kids Day in the Park this weekend. And I want to thank everybody that come to the meeting. It's great to see people attending our meetings. And I really want to thank the Douglas Elementary 3rd graders for their presentation. What a great city we have. With that, no further business. This meeting is adjourned.